You want the conversation to keep going, so you ask a question. They answer with yes, and the conversation stops. That is not a vocabulary problem. That is a question problem, and today I'm giving you the fix. This is for B1 learners who can hold a basic conversation, but find that questions often close things instead of opening them up. Here's a situation. Someone says something and you want to respond. So you ask, did you enjoy it? They say, yes. And it gets awkward. The conversation stops. Have you ever had this happen before? I had this many times. This is because you used a closed question. A question that has a yes or no answer and doesn't ask for an explanation. And a yes or no answer on its own goes nowhere. The thing is that closed questions sound natural because they are short and polite. But the truth is, they work actively against you. Open questions do the opposite. They invite the other person to share more than just a yes or no. And while they share, you have time to think. Closed questions often, that's it. Closed questions often get you facts, while open questions get you stories. And it is those stories that keep conversations alive. So what's the difference? Luckily, it's very simple. A closed question ends in a yes or no and doesn't ask for explanation. Questions like, did you enjoy it? Was it good? Or are you okay? Now, while these questions have a time and place to be asked, open questions invite the other person to speak more. Open questions invite stories. For example, what did you enjoy the most about it? Or something like, what made it good? Or how are you feeling? Note that these open questions can replace the closed questions I just gave you. So instead of asking, did you enjoy it? Ask, what did you enjoy the most? The answer will go from a yes or no to the other person thinking and sharing a story. Now the nice thing is, you don't need to prepare a long list of questions. The most important thing that you can do is listen carefully to what the other person is saying. Then ask a question based on what they said. Now there are questions that work in many different situations. For example, what was that like? But if you just listen and pay attention, you will find a question based on what the other person is saying. Are you not sure? Then let's practice together. I will give you a situation and you think of a question. Then I will give you a few examples of what you could ask. Say you ask me, when did I come to this city? And I say, I moved here 2 years ago. What could you ask me? Yes, you can ask me the basic question, what was that like? But you can also ask me a question like, why did you decide to move? Or how was that experience for you? The question depends on you, but if you make it an open question, you will get a story in return and a conversation will continue. Let's keep practicing. Here's another situation. What can you ask if someone says, I just changed jobs? Yes, absolutely. You can go back to, what was that like? But you can also ask questions like, why did you change jobs? Or what do you like in your new job? Or what is your new job like? Again, these questions invite the other person to speak. And that's a conversation. Let's do one more situation. Okay. What if I said, I went to Vietnam last month? What could you ask me? Yes, of course you could ask me, what was that like? But you can also ask something more specific. Why did you go to Vietnam? What did you experience and see in Vietnam? And have you tried the local food? And what did you think about the local food? You see that these open questions show interest. They show that we are listening to the other person and we want them to keep speaking. And we invite them to keep speaking. These questions work because they are asking for a feeling, not a simple fact. And people always have feelings. So why don't you practice with me? Listen and repeat out loud with some great questions. What was that like? What made you decide to do that? How did that happen? What did you take away from it? What surprised you the most about it? Have you used any of these questions before? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Now that we have done the practice, let's test if you got it. I will give you a closed question. You say the open version before I do. Here we go. What could I say instead of, was it a good trip? Yes, you could say something like, what was the best part of your trip? Next one. Did you like living there? Yes, you could say something like, what did you like the most about living there? What could I say instead of, was the job hard? Exactly. Just ask what made exactly. Just ask what made the job hard. Two more. Are you happy here? Yes. You could say something like, what do you like about being here? Alright, last one. Did you learn a lot? Yes, you could say something like, what is the most useful thing you learned? Well done. Now, in your next conversation, ask an open ended question and notice how the other person talks. If they open and share a story, that tells a lot. Good luck in your next conversation. If this helped, subscribe. New live lessons every Monday and Friday, with the videos every Tuesday and Saturday. Good luck with your next conversation.